just to make a Call of Duty game is amazing, but to get the call to do Modern Warfare 3, I mean, that's an honor. Over the last 25 years, the game industry did not make its money on the power of our budgets. This industry grew on the power of our ideas. My goal was to make the scariest game ever.
I think AAA, the quality of the game is going to go even higher.
Oh,
I
yes.
mean, it's going to shoot through the roof.
Yep.
But I think the most important thing is that across the game development landscape, a lot of smaller studios, indie studios, solo developers, they're going to have all these incredible tools to be able to build some crazy good shit.
What about AI as a creative, real, true creative tool? I use it every day. Sometimes I'm using it all day.
I think the fear is that AI is going to come in and all of a sudden people are just going to generate art and they're not going to draw anything.
AI is taking my job. I'm like, no. You take AI and you make your job better.
Glen Schofield, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, man. It's we've been planning this for a while.
Yeah. It's much different when you come to my place, I guess. It's kind of cool.
It is really cool, man.
I don't have to move.
So I think just to get started, like you started before becoming a game developer and like your entire career, you start off as an artist, right?
Yes.
And what was that whole process? Like it was a cartoonist, like we spoke about it a bit before, but
yeah. Well, I mean, I started drawing when I was 4 and I don't remember anything when I was 3. So I would say I've been training my whole life because, you know, at that age, even 4, you still want to draw better. And, you know, I had an Uncle Bill who taught me how to do perspective when I was like 5, and shading about the same, 5 or 6, and at 7 he showed me 2-point perspective. So I was already getting lessons because people saw that's what I wanted to do. And then you know, my whole life I've been, you know, in grammar school and middle school and high school, I was, you know, the artist, you know. But I had a normal life, you know what I mean? It's not like, oh, because he's an artist, I dressed different or anything. You know, I was a guy who just drew, you know, but I studied and studied and studied, and I loved it. I love cartooning. I love cartoonists. And you have to see, you know, growing up, I grew up in an era when every Sunday night was Walt Disney. Walt Disney had a show, he'd come on. And so, you know, there was a cartoonist who was successful. At the big holidays, there was always, you know, Charles Schultz and Peanuts, and they did Christmas and they did Halloween. And then on every Saturday morning was just like, you know, 6 hours of cartoons, which I got up early, snuck in and watched them. So I always saw cartooning as success. Right. So I just kind of went forward that way. And then, you know, I moved into illustration. I took a lot of lessons growing up. I took watercolor and oil and acrylics and that sort of thing. And I had, you know how everybody's got this one little story? Yeah. I was doing lessons in watercolor because I just want to see how I could use that in my work, right? So I was taking lessons. I actually had to work there to pay for my lessons. And so one time we're going through stuff and she saw I was more cartoony and illustrative and stuff like that. And everybody else is little, you know, it's watercolor. So they're doing more realistic stuff. And she said, you're never going to get into Carnegie Mellon. And I said, what do I care? I want to go to Pratt, you know? And, I always remember that because I don't know if those kind of comments are meant to stop you or to make you go, but whatever it was, it was one of those that just kind of bounced off me.
It makes you more sure of yourself, right?
Yeah. Well, well, I knew, yes, that I knew, that I really wanted to go to Pratt. And of course that was the last college that let me know, because I'm getting Parsons and all these other schools and I'm waiting for Pratt, and that took a long time.
And where did gaming kind of fit in all that? Like, at what point were you introduced to it?
I wasn't introduced to it until, a little bit in high school. We did, we were doing, we're talking early games, Asteroids and, what was playing? Moon Patrol and, just so many of those games, especially Asteroids. And in college, we just, whatever extra money we had, we were going down and just playing the games all the time until like one time we just said, we're broke, we're in college, we're spending our last bucks on this. But that was my big introduction, just playing it for, all the time. And then, I dabbled in it a little bit, but that's also about the time, it's also that computers were big. I mean, they're big, but I mean, they had started a few years earlier, and everybody was kind of getting into computers, and now video games were this big thing. I first needed to learn computers, and that's what I did, because basically, when the computers came along, they took away anybody who was an artist, and they said, you either got to move to computers or adapt and die or die. But that happens at every big one.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, well, I don't mind learning something on a computer. It's a new medium. So that's what I did. I learned computers, and if anybody ever bought an IBM PC, like the very first ones, and the same thing with Tandy and Radio Shack. I did AT&T, Panasonic. Maybe I said it, but we did the demos that you put in your computer, a disk, and put it in. That came with the computer, and you put it in, and you saw how to use it. And we did it like I did Charlie Chaplin and all that. And I think back nowadays, and I'm like, wow, I could have really exploited that. But at that time, I'm 25. She wasn't my wife, and she was there, and I'm thinking more about her, and than I am the work. But I was being flown around and going all over. But it was a really good experience young. And then I got into video games. I used that stepping stone, which was a big stone. And then I got into video games.
And then what was that first game? Like, where did you start?
It was there was a small company called Absolute Entertainment in not too far from where I lived in New Jersey. I lived near the border of New York City. And so this was around there. They were on. It was this little, town. You go in, and they've got their five and dime and everything. But and we were above the hair salon, and so walking in and going up. Sometimes you smell all the chemicals from that. But I think it was the 12th or 14th person hired there, and you know how I got into as well. I was doing a freelance cover for Game Boy. I did a lot of freelance too. And I look on the back of it, and I'm like, geez, I can do that. Because back then everything was like, we had to do it by pixels. But then I get in there, and I'm like, okay, it's actually a puzzle you're putting together to try and make a really nice piece of art, because you got to do everything in 8 pixels.
It's all the little squares, right?
Yeah, yeah. But you can only have so many. So you have to think ahead. I mean, there weren't many in the level. 30 of these little textures, something like that. I'm just throwing it out there. So you have to make sure that like if you're making a rock, they can twist and turn in all different directions. My first one was Barbie Game Girl. They thought it would be funny. The other artists there, they 4 or 5 of them, they thought it'd be funny to give the new guy Barbie. I didn't care, man. I was drawing and doing art for a living. So I just got into it like everything else I do. I remember going to, stores and looking up, being a little bit embarrassed at the time, going into, looking at what they wear and pocketbooks and all that. And, in Barbie's language, if I could.
And you're just flowing creatively, right? Like you're just trying to figure this stuff out as you go. That's the thing. Like
You research.
You're in a
Yes,
new
yes.
industry.
Yep.
You're being an artist, but now you're trying to figure stuff out on the fly, basically.
Yeah, well, here's one for they made me work for 2 weeks for no pay. So for 2 weeks, I did this. I would come in and I was doing. I remember it was the Wizard of Oz. I was doing a piece on the Wizard of Oz, and so I did that, and then I didn't hear back from them for a couple of weeks, and so I'm like, oh man, I worked for 2 weeks or nothing, and but they called me back. I got the job, and so those are some of the things that I've had to do to get into, work for free for 2 weeks, man. And the funny thing is, Barbie Game Girl outsold all of our other games, right? So they made me art director. after that.
Just like that.
And,
Like what?
well, I mean,
In
it's
how
not just
long?
like that
Let's say,
because I was working on Barbie for quite a few months. I don't remember, but back then you could do a Game Boy in 3 months, doing the art, the animation, and the design and all that. I think that one took me like probably 4.5 months. Um, but what you wanted to do if you were an artist back then, you wanted to do it alone. You didn't want anybody else, and that's what all of us were taking on different games. But for me, my first games were all cartoons, except for Swamp Thing, which I'd put into a kind of a cartoony mode. And there was Ren and Stimpy and Bart Simpson and Rocky and Bullwinkle and the Professor and the other guy. I mean, all those cartoons, I was doing them all. And really, I was just in heaven. We went public. So I got to see how a company would go from 12 of us to 150 or more. They had a building built, or the building was built, was brand new, but I would go up there with them and we would look around on how to design the building, and all of this stuff was great education for me, because then later on, I built a couple of studios or ran some, and this knowledge, is very important. You don't realize it at the time. And so another one of the guys there was, his name was David Crane. And I didn't know who he was at the time, or it wasn't the internet around, so I could look him up. But I'd heard of the name. And when David talked, you listened. If you were a designer, you wanted to hear what he said. He made. He was the founder, one of the founders of the original Activision, which is the very first third-party publisher. And so that's a big deal. Made a lot of the games with us, and it was great in hindsight what I learned from him. And then I went to Capcom, and my boss there, even though he was in Japan, his name was Okamoto. And Okamoto designed Street Fighter 2 and just, he's probably in the Hall of Fame too. So my first two gigs, I really had some powerhouse people teaching me how to design as well, because the artist designed back then. Like I said, you animated. There was just an artist and an engineer, and once in a while, if they didn't do the audio, then they got somebody to do the audio.
The designer wasn't. It was just. It was an artist that
was me.
That set the mechanics. Like you decided the game direction. But that's
yes, because game mechanics. At the time, you got to remember it's hopping, it's jumping, and jumping on
left,
things.
Right,
it's
up, down, yeah.
Yeah. But it was all new to people, and it was all new to us. So everything we did was pretty much called innovative, But then after a while, Sonic comes out, and it's like doing double and triple jumps, and you got Mario, and you got to start looking at that. But I had a great time doing that. And then I went to Capcom.
Yeah, so while you're building these kind of companies that gave you this foundation, the industry is also pushing ahead really quick, right? These games are coming out. Everyone around the world is starting to build games. You mentioned Mario. And so you're learning while you're also kind of building your own craft and like learning what kind of is special to you.
Yeah. I look back and there are times that I would just say to myself, I'm very, very lucky, right? Even back then, because for me, it was like there weren't a lot of jobs for artists. There wasn't the internet, there wasn't web, there wasn't any of that stuff. So if you were an artist, you were either an illustrator or graphic designer, and those jobs were mostly in advertising, stuff like that. And of course, when the computer came out and everything else, it just exploded. And now there are just a lot of jobs for artists. A lot more, I should say. Still not easy, but.
Do you feel like games is, in a lot of ways, the ultimate creative expression because of like the dynamism that you have in a game?
Yes. For me, it is. Actually, that's a term I've used. The ultimate creative expression for me, because you get to design and make this world, and then you fill it. You fill it with personalities and people or monsters or whatever you want, but it's you get to fill it. And it's in 3D, right? So you're looking at everything, every single way. I mean, a painting, you do everything in it. Everything is even a tiny detail is very important to you. But now with you're working with teams of people who are just so talented and smart, and they enrich my life as well. So I love working with a team and bringing something like that, a product to life, and just hope that the fans like it.
And what are you instinctively looking at when you look at a fresh game? Like, is it the tone, the feel, the story, the mechanics? Like, what is like the first thing you do?
Well, the first thing I do, and whether, let's just say I'm not told anything about it, the first thing I do is pick it up, and the first thing you see is graphics. Right. So the first couple of things you show me should be really good. I should go, geez, that looks great, or something like that, and then I want to get into it. And of course, then you start learning the mechanics a little bit. And does the character feel right? Does it, you can feel a character that's been by a pro and done by somebody who's new at it, and they'll get better at it, but there's a difference, and so, not that I'm looking for that, but I do want to. I want a tight feeling stick and buttons and controls, and but eventually I'm looking at the whole package. Right? There's one that I was looking at not too long ago that I thought was really good. I thought, man, this could be a hit. And they talked about the story, and so finally I said, well, send me the story. Right? I couldn't understand it at all. And I went back to him. I said, this is so complicated. You're never going to get done. So that was so important to me in this case that I, declined working or giving advice or something on it, because it was too big of a thing to do. So there are many things that will take me out of it, right? And since I am an artist, I am very visual. And so I look at everything as an integrated, right? Is it good art direction or whatever? But I just want to have fun. And when I get into a world.
So you mentioned earlier graphics, right? As the
Yes.
first thing that you look at, which is funny because today graphics feels like it's being undermined a bit. Like in the sense that the new generations aren't so interested in graphics. They're looking for kind of different kinds of social community play.
Yeah, I understand that. Oh, I just want a fun game. I just want to play something. But and they are, a huge group that we need to listen to and cater to. But there's also the other groups, right? So I think that a lot of people were saying, one thing I keep hearing, I just want gameplay. I just want to play, gameplay. I don't care what it looks like. And so the first question I ask is, so games that look good don't have gameplay? I mean, Halo or anything, right? That's a AAA game is sort of like looked down upon now with graphics. But for the past 20 years, it's been a graphics arms race to the top to get through the uncanny valley. And that's what everybody told us to focus on. Even the fans would say, I didn't feel like I was in the world. I wasn't immersed. I wasn't this. So we spent all this time trying to make great graphics. So it's not going to go away. I mean, maybe there's a group of people right now, and I don't mean to offend anybody at all, but I think that group is as they get older, they move on. Even in their mid to upper 20s or 30s, I don't think they're going to want to be in there playing, going every night. Maybe. I mean, I don't have lots of friends, but I think they're also going to want story games as well. And I think the younger generations will start to want. You got a good story, and you got a good game and a good gameplay. Why wouldn't they want it? So maybe what we have to do in the AAA industry is, well, actually, we talked about cutting down on money and all that, and I surely hope so, but don't think that AAA games that we didn't have a budget to watch. Yes, they were bigger, but oh my gosh, the things that you have to get in a AAA game. We can make things cheaper. I think I explained to you about ideas, and like you could have a creative idea that saves you millions of dollars. And what I mean is, like, how do you reuse mesh? How do you reuse cars or things or like this? And so if you have an idea, which I have a couple now that have taken this mesh and done something else with it, You save so much money, and then when hopefully AI will come in and help you place the graphics, but it's always going to need artists.
I mean, so much of games is the ingeniousness of working with the limitations that you have, and trying to come up with a.
Yeah.
We talked earlier about Resident Evil and like the fog that you created in PlayStation 1 because they didn't have the RAM.
Yeah.
But what are other examples that like you've had to work with when you have these limitations on their budget or hardware, and you're still trying to make something immersive and look good?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, sometimes most of the time it's a little bit of the opposite, I think, which is we finish a game and we're putting everything in it. We got fog and we have the, reflections. And we have all this stuff that makes it real and it's so immersive. And when we're finishing the game, we realize we can't fit it. Right. And even though along the way you are being as diligent as you can with the memory and everything, you always have too much. So we have to cut some of that. We'll say, cut the fog out of here, put the fog back so it's smaller. All kinds of stuff we do in the end where we have to optimize them. So the first thing I would want back is like everything we had to cut. And that includes a boss. So that includes, stuff like that gets cut.
But is this for CDs or like even nowadays you can download games online? You can have like the biggest games ever, right? Like the last Battlefield was like I don't know how many hundreds of gigs.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I know. Try and that'll be more fun to download someday. But yes, and so that limitation or not a limitation, we have to give ourselves limitations because if we continue, it's not like how much you can fit in the game, it's how much you can fit in this area. And so you just can't dump everything into it, right?
I see. Okay.
I can't fit fog here. Even though fog's there, we just can't fit it. Well, sometimes it's a effect that we use differently. And so, I think we all, every time we get a new console, I swear, we're like, we can do whatever we want now. And I've heard this so many times. They're like, you can have infinite number of lights in the game, Glenn. And I'm like, infinite. I've heard it so many times. I'm like, how about just give me 7? And by the end of the game, you're like, you can only have 4 lights in this area. And so, there's, we learn about a lot of limitations as we go. We go, oops, that's why you do a lot of prototyping. People always talk about prototyping for gameplay, but we prototype for everything, special effects and memory and all that.
Well, talk to me about Dead Space.
Sure.
Because it is, you are a pioneer of the action horror genre.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
Genuinely, and everyone I've spoken to about Dead Space has spoken so highly of it. Even if it was done in 2008, it still resonates so much today.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? There are some games that do that, and you never expect it when you're making a game.
And what was behind the idea? Like, how did you come up with the idea of Dead Space?
Well, I always have ideas. And different things come to me but I'm a sci-fi fan. I'm a horror fan. I've been a sci-fi fan my whole life. I was mentioning about Frank Frazetta and some of these guys that had books that came out when I was growing up, and mine are torn apart. Paint on them, and because I was, I use these books all the time, as you're growing up and learning. And so, I kind of use all kinds of reference when I'm doing stuff. But where were we going with this?
I mentioned like we talked about Lovecraft and kind of the whole.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
the idea of Dead Space behind it, which is the.
Yeah, I'll tell you where that. Where that actually all this stuff came from. Dead Space. That's right. So being a horror and science fiction fan, science fiction first and then horror. And nowadays when I make something, you have to make it scary and then you put the sci-fi behind it in a way. And so I had just finished making James Bond From Russia with Love. And EA wanted me to make another one. And it was really difficult to make because we didn't have a Bond in the beginning and stuff like that. And I said, I really am not up for that. I need to do something else. And so eventually, I talked him into making a sci-fi horror game. Paul Lee was the CEO at the time, and he let me take about 20 people. I got to pick them from the studio, and then we went in the corner, and they left us alone for a year. And so we had that sort of umbrella, because what you did at big studios, if one of the games was running late or something, you put everyone on it, or you try to put, you wanted to get it done. So everybody knew, even though this was at Activision, this was everywhere, right? You kind of moved over and helped out. So when I was working on Bond, I didn't think of another movie that I would want to make, right? And so, having gone through them, that I thought would make a good game at the time. And so that's why, part of the reason why I said yes, no was like, I don't know if there's anything that I can mind because there wasn't a Bond yet. Remember, Pierce quit or whatever. And then, Daniel Craig, but there was like a big gap.
Yeah.
A few
was a gap
years.
for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I thought it was going to be Clive Owen. And because, when we're talking, they were talking about Clive Owen and everything behind the scenes. So talking Paul Lee into this was, I don't know, he was very open to it. And, that opened the door for like new IP. And some of the, like EA hadn't done one in a while, but at the same time they did Mirror's Edge.
And was this like your first original kind of creation?
No.
Like you were allowed to build a game that you wanted, or did you have those before?
Yeah, no, I've had them before. And matter of fact, if you look back on all the early games, there were no stories, and Barbie didn't have a story, so you had to make a little one, right? Back then, you did the gameplay and everything. Then you put a story in later with little stuff. And then as you started doing stories, I made Gex 2 and Gex 3. I made Blood Omen 2 and Mad Dash Racing. And so all of them, although you say Gex has a license to it, yeah, because it's just the lizard. There aren't stories so you have to write them and make them.
You just have a character design of a lizard. It's like now create a world, create a backstory.
Well, we had to take this lizard and make him 3D as well.
Yeah.
And so I wrote for those. Mad Dash Racing is a new IP. I would look at any of those games. Even Blood Omen 2 is a new IP, and in that it had to be written. I did Disney World Racing, believe it or not. I did Goofy Game for Disney on, was it Dreamcast? No, it was Genesis. Oh, Genesis was my favorite to work on. Believe it or not, I loved working on it. It was big and bold. The colors were good. They were saturated and they bled together. Whereas like the Nintendo, the NES. Sorry, Nintendo, but I hated working on it. I hated the colors. I mean, I loved what I did, but I was like, oh, the colors suck and everything. And then they came out with the, SNES. With Dead Space, I've always had ideas, and I write them down, and I still do. I have notes, the notes in my, I have over 350 just from last year. And they're long. Some of them are long, some of this, that, and some of them just have a note in it, whatever. But that one was going to be a prison planet. And then I started thinking about, spaceship and I wanted to do something more with that and have it go through something. And then I saw Event Horizon. At the same time, I'm playing Resident Evil 4. Both had big influences on me, right? People say The Thing, and the truth is The Thing only had one influence on us, and that was when the head walked on the, pieces. Alien is always in the back of my mind. I mean, how could it not be? It when Alien came out, changed the world. I mean, creatively, right? It's like everything had to be like Alien after that, or look like it. The world just changed because
Sci-fi
it was such a yeah. So same with of course, Star Wars. Just everybody was doing white backgrounds after that.
Yeah.
Everything was clean and all. And then Alien came out and said it's okay to do dirty again. And if you notice there's chains and stuff hanging, that's also, we can relate to it better. So you see a lot of that in Dead Space. How can we relate to this even though it's different? My goal was to, and at the time, I don't like being cocky or anything, but if you have my goal was to make the scariest game ever. Right. And when you tell people that, they're like, whatever. But what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Tell the guys, look, I want to make the 4th scariest movie ever. So you have to go for a goal like that.
Were there other scary games at the time? Like, or were you kind of like, there obviously,
Yeah,
there were horror
yeah.
movies,
What's the
but
one with the little girl? And there was Prey, which no, was it Prey? Yeah, where they came down first person, right? Yeah, that was it. That was out. Resident Evil, there were times it was scary. Resident Evil 4, of course, was more of an adventure game, but there were scary parts to it.
yeah, there were creepy moments.
Yeah, and also tension, right? So I would get tension from little parts of everything. Um, and I watched everything at night, right? And what I wasn't playing, I was watching movie after movie after movie, and that's where I realized no matter how bad the horror movie was, there was something I got out of it, and there was one I don't know, it was like uh, Dead End 7, and there's this they start the movie off, and um it's the camera is in the woods. It's just looking at the woods. And then it starts to slowly move and the tension is building. It's still looking at woods. And the tension is so high. You're like, what? And then and a car goes by. Right. And I'm like, geez, that's really cool. It's like to me, it was, in some movies and even in Alien, they have a cat run by. This was like, to me, the next version of a cat. It was a car going by or whatever, but it was very tense and very scary, and it's just something you're like, I'll take that from somewhere else.
You're building that tension, and then as soon as the audience expects a jump scare, you let something kind of just
and then later on you do the same thing and you give them a jump scare. So those things grow and they can turn into things that you use 2 or 3 times if you just change a little bit. And so learning that building horror is also building blocks, and it's something you were learning all the way, right? I would look at other things and say, that scared me. How do I make it mine? And sometimes it wasn't even like, okay, I'm going to steal it and put it in and do this. I wouldn't do that. But sometimes you went so far off, you forgot that it started over here, right? But at least it gave you that idea to go. There were some scary movies that were coming out during that time, man. And of course, besides the thing, Halloween really scared the crap out of me. Jaws, when I saw it for the first time.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't go swimming. I was a little kid. I didn't go swimming for a long time. And we had a pool. One of those.
Yeah.
And so there's an adrenaline rush to being scared that is like being on a roller coaster to me. You get up to the top, you're like, oh, and then they do something. And it's different type of scare, but there's a crossover, it seems to me.
Yeah, and all these experiences, all this research you did experiencing horror movies, it kind of bleeds into the intentionality of Dead Space. Like when people are playing it, they can really feel certain core design principles. I guess my question is, when you were building the game, what were some of those principles that you were unwilling to compromise on?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that was one we had rules. One was Isaac would never talk, and that was hard to do, because there were times we're making the game or into the game, 6, 8, 10 months, and we're like, he really needs to talk here. How are we going to figure this thing out? But then not talking led to him getting all these things coming up on video, and then we had to make technology for that video. And then I remember we're working, it's going great and it's working, but then it would go through walls, and we had to figure out how we kept that up and kept it in the so even those little things. So Isaac wouldn't talk. He would walk and shoot. That was a definite for me after playing Resident Evil 4, and God knows I love it, but I was like, why do I have to stop and shoot? Because it made more tension. So then I thought, so all I have to do is make tension when you're walking, and still make it tense, so you're afraid that you can shoot like this, but you still need to be scared. And let's see. We had, of course, rules with color, and we always do what we call a art Bible, and so we had to live by that Bible. And we were about 3 months into it, 4 months, and I remember going into the, I had said what kind of art direction I wanted, and sort of the colors, and everything had to be dangerous, and the sounds had to be dangerous, and what I mean by that is even if when you have a washing machine going, you put something, kunk, kunk, you can make everything sound like
creepy. Give it some echo, some reverb, whatever it is, right?
Yeah. And once you get that in your head, you try and do that with everything. And so, making something scary is, like I said, layers on top of each other. And then, then you get to complicated scares. You get to one like this is when you're starting to understand being scary even more, like the drag tentacle, which was something that took quite a long time to make. But not only were we able to use it 2 or 3 times in the game, and that's fine. It's a big, expensive thing. Less is more. But then you could also do the opposite, which is like have the hole where he came out sitting there, and he doesn't come out, but you don't know that. So now you're setting up, I got double scares or something like, and they add more complicated ones that are now across the game. A gag could be across the game like that. We did that with, I remember with naming his girlfriend, Nicole. By the way, it's named after my daughter, Nicole. And so the reason why I did her as like hallucination, it was because I had written down to what I thought were all the different types of scary. And you have ghosts, and you have demons, and you have the devil, and you have crazy guys, and Freddy Krueger, undead, all this stuff, right? So I put them down, and I noticed what I was missing is like a ghost kind of thing, which I don't like, right? Because I'm like, what are the rules to a ghost? And Ghostbusters, they suck them up, and other ones, so I didn't want a ghost, but hallucinations worked. And so that's what we brought her into. And hallucinations then allowed me to have the ghost scares. Like all of a sudden something shows up or something's talking to you behind you and you look, right? So I didn't want beam me up and stuff like that. I want to still be in a physical world. And that's why hallucinations are still in the physical world and allowed us to now do that type of scare.
You're trying to ground things in some kind of reality.
Yeah, I just call it physical based myself,
okay.
Like in Advanced Warfare, I had rules. I had anything we put in the game had to have a hypothesis, a theory, or a prototype. And so if you look, at all the stuff in that game, it's all physical, right? That you can do. And I just prefer that because it has rules. Demons, what are the rules? Do you know? No, but I know what the rules of a zombie are. Shoot in the head. And, a werewolf, you use bullets, silver bullets. But a demon, a vacuum cleaner, fire, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. And that's the way I like to do that's why I go with the physical stuff myself.
And the coolest thing with Dead Space to me is that humans intuitively think they are the alpha apex creatures on Earth. But as soon as you get out into space, we're not as important as we think we are. Like this idea of cosmic horror is that there may be something way greater out there that will make us feel small. And
yeah.
Dead Space, I think, really brings that to life. I mean, you hear so many people on YouTube, video essayists that all kind of really go deep into the lore and the theory to really bring this to life. I think that's really magical what you did.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I mean, if you make a deep enough game and there's enough stuff for people to get into, that's what you get, I guess. I mean, Dead Space was, obviously is they're all passionate for me. But looking back, Dead Space was there's something really special about it. I mean, knowing that your game is fun or scary after only 6 months was such a weight. Like we knew now how to scare people. We were scaring them, and showing people, and they were loving the background. They were loving the lighting. And so we knew we had something special. We just had to keep up with it. it's one of those. I mean, Mikami came to. Everybody was coming to Redwood Shore Studios at the time. We had a brand new studio. We had theater. We had just everything. Amazing campus, a gym, food. And so Mikami came, and I did just me and him. I did a little demo of Dead Space at the time, and after it, he started bowing to me. I'm like, no, I'm supposed to be bowing to you, dude. Well, thank you. And so that was another like, okay, keep going. Just keep going with what you're doing.
And another thing is the lack of a HUD, right? A lack of an interface.
Oh
like
man, that's our biggest rule. I'm
that's
sorry
such
to
an
say
important,
that.
Yeah, but that's such an important one because you you had the life on the back that was visual, and again, you're making an experience that like you're removing everything that could distract you, make you think this is a game. No, you're actually living in this kind of horror movie, playing it and solving these problems.
That was a big rule for us, and a really tough one. You can't imagine how many times we wanted to put a HUD up because putting a HUD or UI on the end of a gun is a lot of technology, at least at that time. And then the thing on its back. I remember that. I remember we're in a brainstorm meeting or just bigger meeting. I'm like, I want to put it on its back. I really want to have somehow. So we're just looking at its back, and somebody says, oh, you know what? I heard that when they go scuba diving, that they have a light on their back to tell them whether they're good, good or bad, or your health. And I'm like, that is an awesome idea, right? And I searched. I think the internet was new then, but I searched and I never found it. I never found the reference to that. And I looked it up a couple years ago, and still I haven't found anything in scuba diving on that. So that was based on something unreal or a lie, but it was great.
So you're just pulling ideas from different places.
It doesn't matter where they come from.
But
bring it to life. As long as they get in the game, I don't care who comes up with it, where it comes up with. Oh, and then I had this engineer and programmer at the time. He was new. He was actually doing intern work, and he said to me, Glenn, if we, when I was alone, and he says, Glenn, when Isaac dies, his bar should always go to red. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. Because sometimes he would die, but it would just stay green if he had green, right? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And he did it in an hour, right? And that's the stuff that I love, is that people are thinking really deep about what they're working on. They can think about the game all they want, but it kind of takes their attention off. But if you think about what you do and how you can make that better, then every part of the game, if you have people like that doing that, is going to always want to get better. And one thing I did say to every team, which was you had VFX team, or I should say leads. You have your lead, your art director, your this, your that, animation. And I said, each one, you got to come up with something innovative. I don't, and you have some time. We have a lot of work to do, but I need something innovative from each one of you. And that's what you get. And they would come with ideas, and when we go have meetings, but every department, that was one of the things to look out for.
Well, we talked about the example, the religion, right?
Yes.
You came up with, you needed a religion, but then obviously you can come up with kind of the framework where you're trying to go, the inspiration, but it's a lot of work just to figure all this stuff out to make it feel real.
Yeah. So when I was thinking about the game at 8-10 months in, something like that, whatever, I felt like there was something missing. I didn't know what it was. And so that's the first idea. You got to come up with, what do you think is missing? I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want, people like, oh, it needs something. Glenn's not happy, blah, blah, blah. But this was just a sense, right? But I always go with the sense. And, it took me 2 weeks to at least just come up with the idea of like, I think I need a religion.
Because you need to give people a rationale for why they believe in something. Like that. We all operate with stories in our heads about what matters and why and what is the meaning of this world.
It not only that, it's creepy. Because now you're bringing someone else's religion into it, and you're like, I feel uncomfortable doing that, right? And religions always feel uncomfortable, especially in a horror game. Think about like movies that when they go to the Exorcist, The Nun, so many that once they go into that church, there's like, ooh, we shouldn't be here, and that
something's all right.
Yeah. And so when I realized that, when I thought, okay, that would be a good idea to put across the game as a religion, then you're thinking, I'm thinking, well, religion is based on faith. And I looked up L. Ron Hubbard and stuff like that on how they, worked on creating a religion and all. And I just realized I got to find something that's faith based. And so, I'm working on what I do is I call them, these are my top ideas. I put like, 5, 6 ideas, theoretically sort of on my arm, right? And so I'm thinking of that idea like a religion, but I have a few other things I got to do. So I'm doing some research on a jungle or something, right? And I ended up down in the Yucatan Peninsula, where and I found an article that was on the meteor, right, that had struck, and so the article said that there are a bunch of scientists who are now studying this because they actually want to go down and get the meteor. Amazing that it still be a part of it, right? But they want to go down and get the meteor. And the first thing I'm thinking, like, wow, that is unbelievable. They're going to do that. But what if it's not a meteor they find? Right? That was the first question I asked myself. And I'm like, yeah, wow, that could be. What if it was a giant baseball, or or it's a obelisk or a marker? Then you have the question of like, was it done on purpose, or it doesn't matter? Whoever did it caused the wipeout of dinosaurs. So I was doing the math, and I'm going art math. So this thing comes down, wipes out the dinosaurs, brings in the ice age, starts the mammals, the birth of mammals, and ushers in the dawn of man. So quick math says, whatever, this meteor created man in some way. And so now I was thinking, now there's sort of a faith. If they pull it out and they find it's a marker, that some of the scientists are going to go, this created man. This started the birth of man. These people are our gods. And you got the other people going, whatever, I'm still got my God up here, but you can, religion's religion. But it became big. People really believed, and they wanted to find out who it was, right? And so, who their God was, but they knew that the rock, this was the marker was their cross.
Yeah, because the religion in a lot of ways is an explanation or an answer to the unknown. Like,
yes,
you don't know. This world is crazy. Like, we're on a floating rock.
That's why it's faith.
And you need faith. And
you need faith and believe in that. Okay, these guys did this for a reason, on purpose. People going, you just dropped the freaking thing. Why would they want to wipe out dinosaurs? So we then created we started putting it in the game, right? And then it starts really seeping into the story and everything, and it just worked out really nicely because then everybody could start to get an idea of where they could use it in their parts of the game, and in some places it was just graffiti and that they had done, usually with my name in it somehow. They and the fans really took to it, right? Just you have people who love Dead Space, you have people who love this or that, but people just love the unitology, So that's one of those things you're not thinking about. You're just thinking about how you make a game better.
That's most
not like, I'm going to do something and everyone's going to love it.
It's the most rewarding thing is that then people are speculating and building on top of that lore, right? And you have people making theorizing, like, what does this mean? Where does the marker come from? Right. Maybe we'll never know. That's one thing that stood out to me is some things you can't explain. Like, we're so primitive, and we're like the space is so infinite. That this marker could just be something that it is beyond anything we can conceive. And
right. And at that time, it's the marker. Right. And and then people went deep on planet cracking and just about all these other things. And I remember I was at home, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, what kind of mining are you doing? I was so used to different types of mining, so I had to come up with a different kind of mining, right? And I had heard that they were thinking about going to do asteroids and all, and then I was like, okay, what's bigger than that? And like, well, if you could take apart a planet that didn't have people on it, take apart a planet, and it's not, the gravity isn't going to screw anything else up along and that. Take it apart, you get everything. That's big. So, and that's you come up with the idea, you work with your team, they make it, mold it, and fold it, and we get it into the game, and you just forget, right? That was a big idea at the time. Because at the end of the day, the big idea is just a game. When you're done, all these mechanics come together, but it's really about everything about the game.
And is this what embodies the studio director? Like, is someone who holds a vision, but then everyone's kind of latching on and contributing in their own ways, but you're holding down this whole idea, and like it has to come from somewhere. So like the foundation of a house, so then you start building the walls, the levels, but it starts on that firm foundation, which is in a lot of ways.
Well, I'm the vision holder, and sometimes I know how that sounds, but it just meant, look, I've been coming up with the ideas for years. I write stories, but I also have people contribute immensely, right? Yeah, I didn't make this by myself.
Of course.
But yeah, you need to come in, and then when there's questions, like you're showing like a big ball of info, and then when it gets a hernia and it comes out, you got to go back and you got to fix these things. So there's questions all throughout it, but your job, yes, is to explain it. Here's the overall game, the game design, because what you want is people to be thinking about that as well, so they can give you ideas. But mostly you want them immersed in what they're doing, and you want their expertise to help bring this part alive.
And how we explain it is like a box, right? You're creating a box that then people can warp and stretch, but it's got to fit within this kind of vision, and then that's what pushes the game forward. Because I've noticed so many games, great franchises, that as soon as you lose that vision holder, you lose that kind of core team that understands what this game was for, and that the audience also really fell in love with that vision. And then like maybe a sequel comes, 3, 4, whatever it is. It does lose that momentum, and some people are there thinking, maybe it's just not the game anymore. They're trying to come up with explanations, but to me, it always comes back to that core vision of that original team. And on my channel, I talk all the time about World of Warcraft and just kind of how they moved so far ahead that in a lot of ways they changed what had originally made the game so resonant for the original audience. So
well, I've been looking it up over the years and trying to study on like why is my mind wired this way? Why, when I go out in the woods or I see that, I'm looking at, I'm driving and I'm looking at mountains, I'm looking at shadows, I'm going, check out that tree, and then ideas, right? And so, I've met a lot of people like that too, right? And then, they say it's called hyper creative. And that sounds like a terrible term, but you need, when you're like me or anybody else, I think you want to kind of know that you're not normal, but that this is, you're okay, right? Because I'm always having ideas, and I just had an idea over the last 2-3 months for a new Call of Duty, and I don't know why, but this story hit me, and then something else hit me, and I'm like, that's a great idea for Call of Duty. So I write it all down, right? I've had idea. I have an idea for Callisto 2. That's all written up. I have a whole thing on that. I have one. I'm working on one for Dead Space 4. There's no Dead Space 4 right now. I just write these ideas, and I have quite a few more, and I just write them all down. But I really love when I have just this one thing. Right. And you can go really deep, like Dead Space, really, really deep with it, like Call of Duty. I've had the opportunity to work on some really, really nice games in my career, really big games with some great people and great, I pretty much love everything I do. Right. And I also love to see people. I don't meet as many, because a lot of directors, are directing. You only get out when you're doing your marketing stuff. So I don't bump into these guys, but we'll write back for. There is sort of a brotherhood and sisterhood of not only game developers, everybody, but then even game directors. And I'm sure every department I've seen that has that sort of thing. So, some great game directors in our industry that have gone through, like Evan Wells. This is a good friend of mine, and he used to be one of my designers a long time ago, and it's just good to see Good people move up too. But talking about the vision is just something that is natural for me. I'm not sure why. I think you train yourself after a while. Like I now can go out. I do go out and talk about my 9 points of becoming creative. Not becoming creative. If you are creative and you're looking, you hit a blind spot sometimes, and you just have this list that says, "Oh shoot, why don't I do this?" For example, bad example, brainstorm is like number 3. We all do that. I haven't had a brainstorm on that idea. I'm going to go do that. And another one is like, stories you've heard or whatever, right? And so you go back, and so that's what I try and teach too.
It's interesting duality because a lot of times people say creativity happens when it's unintentional. You're just walking around, when they say the greatest thinkers of all time would go for walks and they just let the ideas come to them. Because as soon as you start walking, your brain kind of can relax a bit, and then you can start thinking of maybe your next dead space. That's one side of it. And then kind of the side of hearing from you is that there is an intentionality, there is a process for being creative, coming up with the next idea, and being able to build on it. But I just see two things, because you're very, I've watched you over the last few days. You're dynamic. You need outlets for your creativity. You need to be doing something.
Yes, that's why I work on a lot of projects at once. I mean, I remember my I don't know, 6th or 7th grade, and teachers came to my mother and just said, Glenn is just he draws on everything, and we like him. He's a good guy, but he won't stop moving, and won't stop talking, and won't stop drawing, right? And they wanted to put me on something back then, and I was like, "What are you kidding me? No way." And I'm glad. You do have to learn to harness this stuff a bit, right? Going for a walk? No, I don't go for a walk and come up with something. For some reason, I could just point my mind in that direction, and somehow, and I don't know how, it will focus on that general area. But some other stuff will come, and you're like, that kind of fits. But at the same time, you can manufacture ideas. People say they just come to you. Well, like I said to you before, you need creative decisions as well. Tons and tons and millions. And, that's not, somebody's got to say, I'm going to make that castle blue. And somebody else says, no, I think it's red. And we go back and forth. And somebody comes in and goes, no, blue's fine. Just go with blue. It could be anything. But, a part of my world is also to my world is gray, right? Artists, are you done? Are you this? Right? And my job is to make it black and white. Yeah, you're done. The clouds look great.
I've made that decision for you. Let's move on.
Yeah. Or you did what you did. You try and turn that into their decision as much as you can. Like, great job. Let's stop here because it's awesome. That's a better way of saying it. And then a lot of time you have to move people forward. But after a while, they get into it. They understand. Once they understand the vision, you can add to it.
When we talk about director, I think a lot of people first think of a cinematic director, a movie director, right?
Yeah,
And the guy in the high chair calling the shots. What's the difference between that and a game director?
Well, I barely sit in my chair. Well, this is, before COVID and a little bit after COVID. COVID has changed the world in a bit, quite a bit. If you had 100 people in your studio, 150, 200 people, I mean, it's sometimes with Call of Duty, I'd have 300, 350 people in Sledgehammer Games. And so when you have to kind of bring them together, right? And God, I keep losing where we're going.
The difference between a studio director for a movie and one for a game, is because you have so many different kind of people. Obviously, in movies as well, you have lots of different disciplines, but games, I feel like it's a bit more dynamic because you're creating.
I don't want to put a regular director down. I mean, a movie director.
And neither do I.
No, okay. So I'll start. Look, I don't know a heck of a lot about a movie director, right? I've seen it, I've studied it, I've learned it. I've never been on a set, believe it or not, a movie set. I've been on sets for our cinematics or any of our videos and stuff like that, but I haven't been on a movie set. I have, I spent time at Wes Craven's house. I've been, I spent a lot of time with James Wan and even Lunch with Eli Roth and um, John Carpenter and people like that, um, and so their job is so creative and so big, and I just feel like my job is more complicated in that, and I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm saying, but I have to know technology. I got to know what's up, and new technology is every day. And not only, I mean, yeah, we have to approve actors like they do. They go through casting, then we have to build them. Then we have to animate them. Then we have to do this. So there's a huge follow through that we have to do in video games, and there's also this. We can make changes, but okay, so when you make a movie, you go out and you film it. You find a place and you film it. It's already there. You may have made some sets here and there, but you've done that. Everything in a video game has to be built. Everything, right? So we're the opposite. We have to build our backgrounds, build our characters, and put them in our world, and they have to film them and everything. So, but maybe we do a lot of work on the front end, maybe more than that, making a movie. But on the back end, if we wanted to change anything, it's so much easier for us to change than a movie has to go out and reshoot it and all that.
Yeah, because a movie, you're controlling the shot, so the audience only sees this perspective from the character.
Yeah,
in a game, you're giving them potentially free reign. They can go into that corner. They can try to break that mechanic. I just think there's there are more dimensions to a game, and not taking away anything from making cinemas and movies. They're foundational to the gaming. They're just different animals. That's kind of going back to the difference, not in a negative or positive way, but truly just. I think you spoke about this once. Every film director should try at least experiencing what it means to make a game, because you learn a lot from making.
That's what I heard from, I think it was Steven Spielberg that said that.
Yeah.
And he worked at, he was at EA for a while I was there. Yeah. Matter of fact, he gave me one of the greatest things anybody's ever said to me. I was showing him the game. I think it was Advanced Warfare. And it was just me and him and his family and all. And after it, he just said to me, I love how you're telling the story in the art or in the game, in the environment. And that's one of the first things we're starting to really get into it by this point, which, environmental storytelling. And he's a storyteller and the best. So for him to say that to me was just like, thanks, dude.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So what was it like then on working on Call of Duty? Because Call of Duty was one of the biggest kind of action shooting genre type of game ever, right?
Yeah.
So
I did 3 of them.
Yeah.
And then we contributed to others, because our studio would here and there, just like other studios would help us, we'd help the other studios. Pick up a couple characters or do a level or things like that. But working on Call of Duty, I remember when I started Sledgehammer, I had been working for almost a year with a friend, Dan Winters, who was an executive there, just a wonderful man who just died recently, and a lot of us miss him. They even named a dice golf after him tournament. And so he and I were working together trying to get something. I said to him, I'll build you a studio. I'll build you a studio a lot cheaper than if you go out and buy one, right? Of course, when you buy one, you're buying a team and you're buying it. But with me, it was like, we'll be able to build something and all that. So one day I get a call a year later, Dan's like, Glenn, they want you to start. It's like a Wednesday. You need to start Monday. I'm like, holy crap. So we did all that. And we got going, and we built Sledgehammer, and we were making a third-person action game. We were making, for 6 months, a Vietnam Call of Duty game, and called The Fog of War. And so we had just finished Dead Space. I got, 27 people or more from Dead Space came over. Believe me, the lawyers got some work on that one.
Yeah.
And so they come over, and what I proposed was a Vietnam game that was in the trenches, under the ground, something scary. So for 6 months, we had built this really cool 3D
I love that
thing.
idea. Bombs going off in tunnels and stuff,
yeah,
man.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
the Viet Cong.
Well, and in one, you come out and you look at this jungle, and then you see a B-52. Those giant. They're coming. It's on fire, and it's going to land in the jungle, and then and you're kind of like, here, you're in a riverbed, and it goes down and behind the jungle out there. I don't know, maybe I don't know how many yards, but it's pretty big, and it goes down, and then a second later, goes, comes back up, and now we turned the camera, and you're running that way with the camera behind you, and then we turn the camera so you're running towards it, and you see the B-52, and you just have to run, and then you jump. You jump in the air. I mean, you jump off a cliff. You turn. We have you turn, and you see the B-52 on fire just go over you as you hit the water. It was so cool. Sorry, man.
No,
I'm hitting this too.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, please.
Yeah. But then one day, a bunch of the execs came up, and they said, "We'd like you to make Modern Warfare 3." And for a second, that's why I was there. Just to make a Call of Duty game is amazing, but to get the call to do Modern Warfare 3, I mean, that's an honor.
Not just to do it, but to lead it. Like,
to
really,
you got to come up with the
champion
idea.
it.
You got to help take over IW. You got to work with them. You got to, all of a sudden, your world changes quickly. But it's Modern Warfare 3, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the fanfare and everything was just there the whole time, and so we just made a game, But the engine was phenomenal. Just a great engine. We could do things. I could almost do anything I imagined in that engine. I'm telling you, the guys would never say no. They're like the Sandstorm. That's in, I think we did in Sierra Leone or something. But the Sandstorm coming in was just a ton of, VFX and trying to get that to work in a level you had just played. But now you had to go back and play it in the I mean, things where we blew up New York and just, it was a great, great engine. At the time, people would put it down. It's got this or that. I'm like, you don't make games because this is a great engine. So I love the work in it.
And it's a beast of a game, a beast of a franchise, a huge audience. At what point does it go from kind of creativity and coming up with ideas to discipline and execution, right? Because you got to get the game done. There are deadlines. It's a huge budget, right? But of course, you want to be creative, you want to come up with great ideas. But I'm trying to picture at some point, like, things get real. You got to hit the ground running.
Oh, we're always doing that.
You're always okay.
Yeah. No, it's and even sometimes I'll have a meeting, call a few people in, and say, hey, look, I need a few ideas, but I'm not going to use them for about 6 months. But I need to know what's in there. So when I go back to look, and there are ideas like the drag tentacle was one that was on an idea list that I kept, and I went back to it at some point, and so we do that a lot, but you're never done making creative decisions. Right. And you're making micro ones, micro creative decisions. Like when I'm painting, I'm just like, I'm painting a sky. You're going, I need to get yellow in here, a little bit of white. Now, I don't know how it all processes.
Where's the light going?
It's just, you're just thinking. You can still sing and dance and do whatever and talk to people, but there's micro decisions being made. And same thing with a video game. Like, I don't take anything for granted. I've used this example before, but I do it all over. Just even transitions from one thing to another can be creative. So, Modern Warfare 3, very beginning, you're in a scuba dive suit, you're scuba diving, you come out of the tunnel, that's all busted, and a giant Russian sub's going over you, and you're seeing this. It is an exact angle and all and speed of the giant, cruiser and Star Cruiser and or whatever. It's just something when I'm looking at a big game like Star Wars or these big directors, and you see how they do things. You see if maybe you can use that. So that that moment from Star Wars became just a little thing, and not a lot of people picked up on it, but it was interesting enough. It's more interesting than just a sub comes in.
Yeah, we mentioned, like, in the creative process, you're picking up tropes, scenes, references,
Things
moments
you love and
from
like.
pop
Yeah,
culture,
yeah,
movies,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
like, if you're lucky, people will notice and be like, "Oh, great, that's a callback to
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
war movie in Vietnam." But otherwise, like, we're just kind of all wired to kind of
Yeah, it's
seeing these things and
yes, yeah. And that's why like no scene, nothing in a video game should be taken for granted.
Yeah.
I'm not saying people do it, but and that's why I say even the little transitions. I've talked about changing, cameras and things like that for the future, and just having something slightly blur out in the background points attention at something that you want, or beautiful cameras that you can just go through doors, right? Little things that you work on like crazy to get right. So creativity has never stopped. It never, ever, ever, ever stops. People are always having to think of something.
Yeah.
I mean, they're putting a character together. They're like, how big are the feet?
So how do you make a game level? Like, how do you break down a game into chunks of levels or experiences, and what does that process look like?
It's always a different process, no doubt. I'll give you a couple examples.
Yeah.
On Modern Warfare 3, Modern Warfare 2 ended in Washington, right? I figured the war there was done, right? That they would go to New York next. So, I mean, in Washington, a little tiny thing. You got New York not too far away. So that's why I chose New York, because I wanted to blow it up because I love New York. I love it. But, I went to college there in Brooklyn at Pratt, and then I spent years living in the city, on 25th Street, and, ride my bike at night. And sometimes I sat in the Midtown Tunnel for hours with the, getting all the gas and everything fumes in me. And so I'm like, I want to definitely blow up that
tunnel.
Yeah, that tunnel. And I think I'm going to blow up some in New York, which kind of weird right after 10 years after the big thing. But um, another one. I loved the movie Heat at the time.
A great movie. I mean, that
Great
was the
movie, right?
foundation for Grand Theft Auto was based on Heat, right? Like,
Yeah. And so there was always a scene we always talked about, which was the fight scene near the end, and they're in traffic, and Val Kilmer. And I mean, it was just
great scene.
So I wanted to do that scene from Heat, all right? And in doing so, I looked up what is the worst traffic in the world. I figured it was going to be like 42nd Street or something in New York City, because I know how bad that is, and or someplace else. I never thought that Lagos, Nigeria, had the worst traffic in the world. So I started studying it, and that's why we're in Lagos, because I wanted the worst traffic. And then, we deal with the traffic all throughout it and all. And so, the genesis of that story, or that part, and then we fit the story within going to Lagos. It worked so good because we were already going down to some of the places like Sierra Leone, or places like that. And so, that came up. We did Detroit, and I guess Advanced Warfare. And sorry, this is a lot of levels, so I forget sometimes. But we did Detroit because there was this book that came out that it was called like Old Detroit, or Abandoned Detroit, and it was a book that was just so artistic on all photographs of abandoned things in Detroit, because they had a lot of issues with, the car companies and everything. It was just beautiful, like abandon this, abandon that. And a lot of us loved it. And we're like, let's do a level in Detroit, And so you're writing a story, but you're finding levels and you're fitting them in, and sometimes they don't fit in, or you rewrite the story. It's not like it's all like, oh, story levels. There's a lot of moving around. Like Detroit was, let's move it here first. No, let's move it around.
Yeah, it's not all super mapped out. It starts from a kind of big idea, right? Big inspiration. And it's like, all right, how do we adapt this now?
Yeah, like the start, the middle part of it, and the ending, and you're writing a story, but you don't always know you don't. I'm writing a story right now, and I know what the beginning, middle, and end is, but there's a lot to fill in. And you have ideas, but that's where you want a lot of other people also contributing, because those are big chunks. Just a billion ideas right there you're going to come up.
So these levels within these stories, you're coming up with like a skeleton of a story, right? Like
Yes.
Your intro, kind of like the middle bit, maybe the climax, and then like how does it conclude and lead up to the next one?
Right.
And then in that, the body of, like, I imagine like an essay, the body of that essay is all the levels and kind of the inspiration you can kind of, and there you're brainstorming, you're finding ideas, things that are cool, things that are different from the previous game. And
you probably have mechanics already, right? You're going to have, you're going to have mechanics and features that you're kind of fitting into the story and things like that. But sometimes, we would call them environment mechanics, right? Or features, environmental features. And we would give like every level, you got 2. And that meant something like, oh, I'm going to blow it up, or this thing's going to fall down on me. And they weren't big moments, but you had a lot of these little things that you'd put in the game. And so, yeah, once you got, you're always researching. I'm always researching. And once you have like all your levels in place, and you're already working on a couple that are going on, now you can take even more. You take a few people and you go deep into how to bring the 2 levels or all the levels together. And again, it's not. Everything's being done in parallel, except what needs to be done in serial. But it's not. You're trying to keep everyone busy and moving forward all at once. Not just like, oh, this thing's so far ahead, and although you do try and get your mechanics and features done before you're building your levels. I mean, that's everybody says that. It's a goal. It's so many times with your deadlines, you can't do that.
Because logically you think, I need to be able to move this character. You're building the world for then this character to move around, and like the mechanics and the movement. And so that those 2 things have to adapt to each other. You would think sequentially and logically you do the mechanics and movement first, and then you build the level around it. But sometimes you're just moving in different directions.
Right? You can't. And that's, like I said, that's the thing that people will say with authority. You can't make your levels in your game without your mechanics, right? And I'm like, that's bullshit. Because we do sometimes, and then we'll say, and the mechanics being worked on, but we're at least smart enough to know that we're working on a mechanic that's probably pretty damn good. Yes, you take a lot of chances, and I love that, but you don't want too many of your people going off on like Blue Sky.
Yeah.
You want them going off on some really good ideas that people have had and working on that.
You got that core idea, but you're constantly iterating.
You're
like
constantly,
something can come back that's better.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a good thing. You just reminded me. The difference between good and better. I should say, is it different or is it better? Because people are always coming up with, I think I got an idea for this mechanic, or that mechanic. And you just say, is it different or is it really better? Because, I'll give you an example in the real world. You go and buy a couch, right? You love your couch. You sit on, you've been on it for like 3 months, 4 months. You go to your friend's house, they got a brand new couch. You're like, this is really cool. I want this couch. There's nothing better about it. It's just different. And so I have to try and make sure that we're separating that before you go change a mechanic.
How do you know if something is better, though? Because it's you'll know in your heart of hearts, you as studio director leading kind of the vision and like what it is. You can definitely vouch if something's better, but I mean, you got other people on the team, you have an active player base or an audience is expecting something. So how do you get to the point where you can go to maybe I don't know, some executive and say, I know for a fact that this is going to be better. Trust me. Like it can come from you.
Let's say it came from somebody else, which is what will happen. People will come and say, I really think that would be better green. And that's what well, is that better? Is green really better here? And just take that example. It could be that you say, well, they blend into the trees better, and they do this or they do that, and you're like, that is a better idea than having a pink. Sure. So there are some that are different and like really different, and you're like, I'm not sure it's better. And you have to really do stuff like that. I'm not sure it is really better. And if we're not that sure, we may make a little prototype and see about it because there might be something, but I'd rather have the ones where I'm like, that's different.
Yeah.
That is really different.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is like so much I see in games lately is about the metrics and like what are the numbers saying and being able to prove it based on an audience interaction. They're all agreeing based on certain KPIs, their retention, their engagement, that this is better. And it feels like a lot of the creativity has been outsourced to spreadsheets and data that prove something. And when I speak to you, it just feels like you're someone that has actual kind of taste and understanding and intuition of what's better. And I think that needs to come back drastically in games because so much of it is just tweaking stuff based on numbers. And I get the value of it, but
yeah. Oh man, I am with you. Every single day on LinkedIn is another list that is, hey, use this list, and it'll be like, for your game, come up with an idea, go get a team, do this, and retention, and there'll be these lists. And I look at the list, I swear, day in, day out, it's about all kinds of different games. I'm like, okay, nowhere in here, in this list, does it say creativity. Doesn't say ideas. It just says, okay, start building your game. And at first you need to make this, you need to do that. It doesn't even talk about design documents. They don't talk about technical documents, or they don't have, the creative process in the beginning is this big, uncontrollable giant thing, right? And you need to kind of harness that. When they say all these KPIs and everything else, I not that I don't believe in it, but I believe in the power of the idea first. And you can get all the KPIs you want after that, right? But for me personally, if there's a particular game that I want to play and that I want to make, I'm pretty sure, especially with the help of friends, that that's a good idea. That should be made, right? There are others I've had that I've been pretty strong about, and in the end, we never made it. And later on, I go, and probably a good reason, right? Probably a good thing we didn't do that. But so much metrics. That's all I hear, and most of these lists I see from people are from people who uh, they can't have been on the game. I mean, they say they're developers, but I you look and you're like, yeah, well, you weren't a developer. And not that they can't make lists, but it doesn't talk about creative. In the last 4 years, talk has been about AI, which I love. I love AI, but it makes a lot of mistakes. It's broken. It's not ready yet in some many cases. I hear how it's going to make us faster and better and cheaper and all that. Faster, more efficient, better, all good stuff. But tell me, I mean, seen this before, right? We got, motion capture. Oh yeah, that was a big thing for animators and everybody else. That was a giant game changer, right? But you suck it in as a team and you start doing it. So, this one that we're going up against right now, the thing that I'm not hearing though is creative. I don't, all the tools are making are fantastic. Yes, in ways they will make you more creative because you can build more stuff and you can do more things and it's faster to do. You can do more iterations. There's no doubt.
absolutely.
That's only a few things though, right? I haven't seen anything that like functions as one. I'm sure there are people working on it. There's gonna be an engine out there, right? Because there's so much money being thrown at it. I still believe that, a good creative idea can save $30-40 million in the very beginning. Tell me, because all this stuff about AAA games costing too much and they don't make the money, they don't do this, they don't do that. To me, the problem isn't the AAA games, except they gave too much out to people. Because I mean, look at Call of Duty. There's a AAA game. and every one of my games made over $1.5 billion, right? Why would there never be a A game like that? How much does Halo make? How much does Resident Evil make? I feel like we're going through just a little time right now where everybody's like against the AAA games. Here's another fallacy I hear, and I think maybe we've talked about it a bit, but when they say, and I know we have talked about this, but when they say that I just want a gameplay, I just don't care. Give me a box, and I'll bounce around, and if it's fun, I'll do it, right?
Yeah.
And I agree with that, right? I agree with that. Some of the games I see now that people are talking about fun, and they're like, "This is really fun," right? They've been made before. I mean, maybe a long time ago.
Yeah.
On something else, right? Now a lot of them are coming out, and so what I see is a lack of ideas, and especially when they're pushing everybody to make when everybody has to make a $2 million game or a $5 million game, and then you're given a list. Yeah, here's how you make it better. What the hell is that?
I think this connects super well to what we were just saying about metrics, because it's this appetite of not wanting to take too much risk. You want some kind of guarantee. So let's keep measuring. Yeah. What does this genre do on this console with this IP in this market right now? Can we write this check and make sure we either double our money or at least break even? And anything that goes beyond or creates any kind of risk becomes no, we can't do this.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a jarring opposite to what happened with COVID, where we're just throwing money at the games industry. And now we're at this place where we've kind of not shrunk, but there's so much pressure to make a hit. There's so much pressure to make sure that there is no risk. When fundamentally, when we're talking about creativity, like if in creativity is risk that something is great or not.
No doubt. But there's also the steadies, right? Who just make a game, right? You know what I mean? And that's what I do. And I just felt that their risk taking was not so much in the game. They took a risk on the leader, right? And so they put money into people who, many of them are very good developers, but many of them have never run a company or a studio, let alone then direct a game. Doing the both for the first time, everything needs to go right. People around you need to be fantastic. You need to have hired everybody really good. And so that's the risk. To me, leadership, first and foremost. And I feel like the people that are investing have no clue how to hire a creative person. And for me, that's all we've been doing my whole life, and a few of us just like it. And all you have to do is scratch the surface on some people, and you go, hey, you're not creative. You're a scientist. Yes, you're creative in your field. That's great. Fantastic. And everybody has that creative part. But there's some people that just go, hey, I'm not creative at all, right? And there are other people that are afraid to admit that. And but it's fine, because I'm certainly not technical. I'm not neat. I'm not really that organized. When it comes to art and everything else, so that's my superpower. And so everybody has that kind of superpower. And you should, like, and maybe this is a bad example, but in football, these great coaches, their assistants go on, and people are always talking about that guy's ready, and he's worked under these great, and I'm sure there's people from Bethesda and Naughty Dog and some of my guys and all that are ready, right? And some of them are starting to get picked out, right? Hey, we want you, but that's what you got to go for. You need to. So over the last 25 years, the game industry did not make its money on the power of our budgets or the power of our efficiency, although we always try to be efficient. We didn't make it based on somebody just giving me here's how much money you got. They would give me a budget. This industry grew on the power of our ideas, right? And for the last 20 years, man, there've been just some amazing ideas have come out of the game industry. And that's what you need to invest in, right? And I just feel like they were investing. There was, I don't know, maybe 30 AAA games being made right at the time. Maybe, and that's maybe $100 million a piece. But the market only likes 4 or 5. It doesn't matter how many you're making. You can't expand the market unless you got something incredible, right? But 4 or 5 of them are going to make it, right? And they're going to be big, and everybody else is going to move around. The others are going to fail just based on art math. 4 make it, 12 don't.
Talk to me about Callisto Protocol. What was the development process like?
Hardest process I've ever had.
Wow. And that says something. I mean,
Oh,
everything you've done.
There was 2021 was my worst year in development. Because there was everybody's at home. It's also the industry's being flooded with money, so we had what was called the Great Resignation. You could hire people quickly, but you lost people quickly, and you didn't lose them for you lost them for 10 grand, or there was just money being thrown away and thrown around, and people were leaving. It was a very, very tough time. During that time, we lost about 48 people who quit for that reason. We were able to hire them all back because we had to hire more. But what happens is somebody's working on your game for 6 months or a year, whatever it is, whether it's art or animation or making skeletons or doing, coding and engineering, you've lost what they were working on. And we're going to hire somebody back, but then they got to figure out what happened.
You got to onboard them back. Like you lose all that knowledge.
Yes. And so you have that happening. You also have COVID, and in the United States, we know it was really, really bad, right? Matter of fact, I think like 1.2 million Americans died during COVID. It's an insane number. Yeah. I lost one of my best friends,
I'm sorry.
my college roommate for 4 years, in my wedding party, everything. So it's pretty devastating. And what was happening is like at least 4 to 5, 6 people a month were dropping, not dying, but they're dropping with, how sick you got from COVID in the first round. And people were out 6, 8, 10 weeks then, and then finally getting better. And COVID tests were finally starting to come out and all. But the amount of production and then stoppage and then starting again and stop, and that would happen in every department was really, really a difficult time to keep your game moving forward, and then at that time you're just trying to keep people and then you're onboarding because you're hiring just as many, very difficult time. So we started in 2019 and I think I started June and I was the only employee for, I started the company. So I was the only guy around for a couple of weeks. So we're losing 5 or 6 people a month, and sometimes then their family would get it, and it would affect what they're doing all the time. So, COVID greatly affected what we were working on, and we never stopped. I mean, imagine this: we started in 2019. We hired like crazy. I don't know if we had 45, 60 people, something like that, because we filled this temporary space while our studio was being built. Striking distance studio. And finally, it's all on time. The furniture, everything came in within, when it's supposed to, which was March 1st. And so we moved in that day, or March 2nd. Whatever. We moved in, a brand new studio. It was nice, refrigerators, a little ice cream place, everything, And on March 7th, we were the first, I think, county in the United States to be shut down. I remember California was hit pretty hard, pretty quickly. Came from up north and came down. And so March 7th, we were gone. We weren't in that studio. We couldn't use it. Now, we did use it because we had also built a motion capture studio there. So we did a lot of stuff in there, but we had major rules on what they had to do. SAG, the Screen Actors Guild, had rules on how we had to do COVID and how people could perform on stage and all of that. So at that point, there were rules. We would set up a meeting. We would set up a motion capture day or week, and no doubt somebody would get sick and we'd have to postpone it and move it. I mean, it was just one thing after another. And And imagine we're all working on a game, and we're hiring like crazy, and people are so excited about the studio, right? And the game we're making. And you just imagine that we're putting all our love and our heart into this game and camaraderie, and then we move back home, right? And I know a lot of people saying I get my work done because they were in my team. They'd say I get my work done on time. I'm better at home. I can do my work. The problem is at the end of the week is when then we have to start looking at stuff. We're looking at, and we may have not looked at that person's stuff for 2 weeks. This is 200 people now on the team. We're 150. We're growing. And so they did get their work done on time, but it's never really been fully checked. And especially by me as a director, I've never had a chance to say, hey, with this guy, just kind of go this way, go this way. So they go and they make their stuff, and they make the calls themselves. And so it's a hard thing to get over, saying to them, yes, you got your list done, but your list is more than a list. It's this flowing creative thing that you need to work with directors and art directors or your designers together. And when you do it on Zoom, it's not the same as somebody, hey, Joe, come on over here. And then you're working together on this thing. Or happen all the time. I'd be go looking around and sit down with the designers or something and go, that's really freaking cool. I would like to see more of that. But and you call over a producer and you call over somebody and they make yeah, we'll get that done. We'll talk to you in a couple of days. And that happens all the time. And, then I'll see 5 designers over talking to each other or they're having lunch together and they're just talking about the game and talking about that. All that is lost. Yes, people say, well, I talk with my other designers on Zoom. Yes. Are you getting the same benefit? Is it on time? Here, when I have a room of people, let's say we have 150 people, and during the course of a week, I mean, you're looking around, if you know them, you're getting to know their families, you're saying hello, you're looking at their work all the time. You're looking at some people's work, 5 times, and most of the time is just validating it. But now you're doing it on Zoom, you're sharing a picture, you're doing this, you're doing that, right? And it's not, the creative process has changed. Technological process has changed. And I just think that in a lot of this, once again, the creativity suffers. The ideas, there aren't as many because you're on Zoom. It's just really hard. I mean, yeah, you can do stuff. So now that seems to be the life where everybody's working on home, or you're doing. I've been doing outsourcing since Dead Space. So we still use outsourcing, but you still have a team, a core team there. I hope we get back to that at some point, or the tools for working together. I don't know how you'd make them better. I mean, yeah, if everybody was a hologram and we just sat there and talked, that'd be cool. But when I'm on Zoom and somebody's talking, then the other one's picture pops up because they start talking, and this one, it's okay. I then put everybody on those screens, and we have our brainstorming meetings, but somebody else is yelling and talking a lot. This person's putting up their hand, and it's not the same.
No, I've experienced this. I worked in quite a few remote companies, but when I'd go to the office, those moments in the kitchen where you get like some people from another title and then an engineer and then a back-end's DevOps guy, whatever it was, and they're all there. We're talking about like big problems about the whole, maybe it doesn't have to be that negative, but you get insight into just more than just your little slice of the pie for that. You're looking at things at a bigger level, and that stuff happens organically, casually. It doesn't just, you can't just will it because you have a Zoom call or stand up and then things get discussed, man.
I would see less. I definitely saw less of like 3 guys or 3 people coming to me and saying, I got this cool idea. We got this skill. We're making this. Those diminished. Right? Because they weren't working together on stuff like that. They were still doing their job and everything, and everybody's doing a good job, but it wasn't as meshed, and there weren't as many. There were times when we would just say, "Okay, that's good enough idea," because imagine this though too, as we have to move everybody into at home or in a week, or you have 150, whatever the number was, you have 150 people sitting around not doing anything. You have to get their equipment to them. And especially, some of them moved that day. They're like, "Oh, I'm moving back to here." We had to set up, I think it was 17 different states to hire people or to house people, because people were moving all over. And then we have to set up an entity. You don't just go, "Hey, I'm moving to Indiana," and like, "Oh, that's cool. We'll send you a check." No, you got to set everything up. You got, it's not an easy process. And so we finally set our limit at 17, but we had people now in 17 different states and a bunch of different countries, and everybody now needed a dev kit. Before, we could work together and maybe only have a few of them because they're hard to find, very expensive. Now we had to find 150, 200 of them. And that was also the time that there was a shortage of chips. So we weren't getting everything that we wanted. And trying to get, the dev kits was extremely hard. We had to pull in favors. Thank God Krafton was very, big company, very influential. They were able to get a bunch, but it took a couple of months to get what we needed. And so there's a lot of times people are doing stuff that's not actually running in the game.
Well, this shows you also that as a studio director, you're not just thinking about the direction of the game, but also like the health of the team, like how they're working, what they need.
Yes.
Again, this idea that like what you do is just 360 degrees around the whole thing.
Yep.
Like it's not just a slice. People think, oh, he's a director. He's just thinking about the game. He's calling the shots. You're thinking about the whole thing, which.
Well, yeah, if I get back to that thing where I said I had 150 people, right, in the studio, and you're able to go around and look at 5 things at once. You step back at what the teams are doing. You're touching these people every day. Some people are getting it, 5, 6, 10 times a week. We're talking or meeting and looking at stuff. That's all gone, right? So now 150 people, which I could talk to, like I said, many times during the week. But now, in order to get in touch with 150 people, you either put them all on Zoom, which of course isn't going to work. You can't touch people that way. And then, or you could do it one at a time. But if I was seeing somebody 3 times a week, that means 3 calls to them. And that means 150 people. So, I mean, is that 450 calls a week I'm going to make? No, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's not the same way. Even if you reduce that number to 100 people that I don't get to touch every day, or we don't get to talk, communicate, work together, it's just whittling away at the creative to me. So you have COVID and working at home that kind of whittled away the creative, And now you have budgets that are starting to, no, you can only do $2 million games that are whittling away the creative. And there's other forces that are, taking place. Not that I think AI is going to be that way, but I think, we're not talking about the creative anymore. We're talking about how we did it, how I'm working at home, and it's great. And, we're talking about the wrong things. I never hear them talk about the creative. And it's the same thing with AI. I am a huge fan of AI. I mean, I use it every day. Sometimes I'm using it all day. And I know it's kind of controversial talking about Midjourney and all, but it shouldn't be controversial at all. It's for most of you, it's going to be a tool that you use all the time. For me and many artists, eventually it becomes a medium, right? So Midjourney, I've been using it for quite some time now, since at least 23. And so I've found a million uses for it. I don't know, I've created maybe 50,000 different characters, really, over the last 3 years, because you can create so many and you're allowing that. And I still will create 100 to get one. I'm not going and pressing a button. And so
you're just getting the first thing. Perfect.
Yeah, no, it's, and that's when I'm trying to tell people, we're like, AI is taking my job. I'm like, no. You take AI and you make your job better, right? What is the difference between using AI, which is going to make you a little bit more efficient, than when we went from 2D to 3D, right? I mean, we're just going to go through this. You have to go through this. This is going to make your game better. This is going to make life better. Is it going to make the games cheaper? I don't think so. I really don't. Unless you can get it down to, I can make this game in a year, right? I don't see the tools to make it for a year yet, within a year. Now, obviously, someone's going to do it and tell me I'm wrong, but I want to see, how many failures. I believe that AI is going to create industries, jobs, millions and millions of jobs that we can't even predict right now. For example, when you got your first phone, you're like, "This is a great phone." Now it's got a flashlight on it. I couldn't have predict that. It's got iTunes. I didn't know what that was. And then iTunes went on and went on to the internet, and all of a sudden, podcasters creates jobs that how many? Millions and millions of jobs. AI is going to do the same. But we're in and I can see it. I can see ideas. But we're in a place where everybody's thinking about AI tools as a tool.
A replacement.
People
are scared of that,
the
right?
wrong thing. They're right.
Yeah.
Instead, I see a future where if you learn AI, right? If they called me right now and said, "Hey, why don't you do a gig and everything?" and I say, "Yeah, you know what? I need probably 4 less concept artists because I can do this stuff in Midjourney. But man, if we could train them and have them help out so and so, I think that what's going to happen is, this may be hard to understand. When we talk about AI, most of the time I hear people talking about tools and efficiency and everything. So I started thinking, yes, they're making tools to make our lives faster, quicker. We can build better, and we can start building levels maybe, and we can buy, get stuff for the front end and some back end. We're going to get tools that help us make, less bugs and make the game more polished. And I'm thinking, what's in the middle of the game? My job is the idea. I have to make sure that we're going to get in the vision, right? So I'm glad we have all the tools because I can make the vision happen and happen faster and better. But what about AI as a real, true creative tool? And I started thinking, and I'm sure there's people out there who have been thinking the same way, but I started looking at myself as like an AI, like a bot or something. And I thought, if I put myself in the camera, what would I do? Right? And I'm like, man, I would make sure that it just floated. It's glided off collision. It kind of hit the floor. If it by accident, it would just be nice. It'd be nice. You're still in charge of the camera. But now doors, which are a freaking pain in the neck for the developers, now you have nice AI just taking you through the door. And maybe at the same time, it's given a slight turn so it feels right. And it could be even opening up the FOV just a tiny bit so we see a little bit wider out there. Or maybe it's somewhere else and it's blurring out the background so you can focus on something here. You don't see it. I call them, micro adjustments, right? We can make tiny millions of micro adjustments to the camera that will make it feel smooth and weightless and not and glide. And doing the FOV and all that stuff, that alone will change the way a game feels. Because I'm just thinking on the surface of those ideas, but wait till I really get a camera, and I'm going, okay, right here, there was a camera that Spielberg did in War of the Worlds. We just went around the car, right? Unbelievable scene. And every director, or most directors, James Wan, they have stuff like that. You could go, give me that. When you do that, give me the same angle as the James Wan camera. You could do so much with the camera that will change the game. And people will laugh because I'm not sure it can happen or not, but I would really love if the screen is running at 60 frames a second, then I could run the camera at 120, make it even more smooth. It will change games just along that way. And so I put myself as an AI I went into audio. What would I do with audio? And that's the one I don't really talk about too much, right? But you have audio, you have these other things, audio, VFX. And so what we're doing is we are creating new jobs, because now I need a camera team. Probably needs a couple of artists, or, this sort of thing. It's going to need designers. It's going to be a few engineers. So I'm going to spend money over there. I'm going to spend a couple million, whatever it is. I got another one of VFX. I'm going to do something. Well, the audio shit I can't really talk about, but the stuff you can do with audio, and just think about it, right? And AI. So I want even less HUD.
I was just going to say, like, you've seen so many bottlenecks throughout your career. You've built so many incredible games with so many people, and
thank you.
And it's not a question of what jobs they're going to get lost or things are going to change. I think things have always changed. There have always been changes in the technology, changes in the ways of working. I think this is going to unleash creativity, and I think everyone's freaked out by it, but you're going to be able to do way more, like that camera idea that you have, where you can go in and really like tweak things perfectly. Like, there's a lot of manual work that people need to do to get that to feel right. Imagine if you can remove that manual work and allow people to focus on the higher quality work, the stuff they really want to focus on. And maybe you don't need thousands of people, hundreds of 500 people for a game. Maybe you need a smaller team, and that's okay, because then those people go out into other indie studios, or they create their own studios. And I just think across the board, the bar will get raised of what makes a great game.
There's no doubt it will get raised. And it would be great if we had more people in the studio. It raises even more. I can't give you the ROI on in studio. I can just tell you from my experience that it's different, and it's really hard, right? And part of it is Callisto came out with a bunch of bugs. It came out as my lowest scoring game ever, right? But I know I know that wasn't the game that I wanted to ship, right? And so we needed more time. We needed more effort. We needed more people, because it was really hard to get. You had to get people up and running, right? And new people. You got to hire somebody else, and they say, "Well, I'm in Texas." You even opened a new entity, or you and you shipped everything down there. So we lost a lot of time on all of that, and all these things take away from the creative. Every single thing, chips and chips and chips and chips.
Completely
and I want to bring it back. AI, if people would stop being afraid of it, is one of those things that will do it. I still believe you're doing AI and you're doing it at work together. I'm just going to say, hey, take this prompt. Oh, I got this. Right. You're still creating. And it's, to me, it's the same way as, like, all of a sudden we went to Maya. Right. And everybody was just using the 2D tools and stuff like that. They were like, well, Maya, what is that? And, it's a smaller freak out than of course, AI, which changed the world. But I mean, we've lived through so many of this, and I wish the people nowadays would embrace it, because I believe that these 2 years and a couple of years before us are an inflection point for your career, right? If AI is going to be something that works for your career, we'll just take art, right? Learn it now. Become an expert. At least grow with it. Like I have grown with chat, and I think I'm version 1 of chat and Midjourney and a few others. And when you grow with them, you'll see the aches and pains and the things that are changing, and then eventually it's going to get better. So I say, pick a couple or something for what you do, and do it. Learn it now, because in a year, 2 years, you're going to come out as an expert. And the people coming out of school probably will not have had 4 years of AI. So they will come out of school, but in 6, 7 years, they're going to come out of school with AI. But if you establish yourself now as an AI expert in whatever you do, you got yourself a job. Because pretty soon, it's sort of happening now, but they're asking, okay, this is a great portfolio, good resume, good everything. Do you know AI? I mean, that's a question that's going to be asked. And it's going to be asked sometimes with not a lot of knowledge. Like, what AI do you use? What are you using? Right? They won't know, but it's going to help you.
I think the fear is that it replaces the craft. I'll use you as an example. You've learned to to draw, to do cartoons. This built up your career and your understanding of art and your taste and your intuition for it. And I think the fear is that AI is going to come in and all of a sudden people are just going to generate art and they're not going to draw anything and they're going to lose those foundations. And I always go back to the idea that we're always going to do stuff by hand. We're always going to explore stuff for ourselves. But this tool will allow us to brainstorm, will allow us to generate higher quality concepts. You can combine these two, but I think it's up to the person to like continue figuring out their craft, building on it, and then leveraging these tools to be even greater instead of just, oh, it's going to completely replace and wipe out this entire thing. It's like, no, like this, it's just going to evolve with it. You still should go take lessons. You still should go to university and learn about how to draw, learn about color theory, whatever it is. Don't lose that just because it's getting replaced, because computers have done something very similar. Like you can get a lot of stuff done on a computer, but you still have to have those fundamentals. And
there's, I mean, if so now a person who's not an artist, a complete non-artist, is an accountant, really good at their job and everything, but now they could go into Midjourney, say, I want a beautiful woman, I want her with roses, and I would like she's standing in a garden, and so the person can do that, press the button, and they're going to get a couple of pictures that are really good looking nowadays, right? And most of the time they'll go, that's really cool, right? I'm gonna use that for whatever they're using. But someone like myself and other artists, when they start to get into it, you start to realize, okay, I needed to come out more like me. So I started working on styles and start working on how to get things. And there's never one time that I press the button and get a beautiful woman, right? Or whatever I'm making. Because as an artist, I'm going to go, okay, I want a woman standing there. She's barefoot. There's dew on the things around her. Her flowers are a bit wilted, but they're not dead, right? Her thing is, her dress is wet a little bit from the rain, and she's got streaks of blonde in her brown hair, or whatever we do, necklace. So I'm going to get into detail, and my prompt is going to be this long. Put that in, and then I'm going to keep adding to it as you go, and I'm gonna make them more wilted, do this, add some colors, and you'll try different things, right? And it's going to be pretty quick when you can get your final thing. But I am going to create a much different person or whatever than somebody who's not an artist.
And I completely agree. And I don't think generating work from AI changes that much from what we've done prior. Like imagine you have to brainstorm for something. You go on Google Images, you type maybe beautiful woman in a context, and you'd go through hundreds of images looking for things.
Yes, and you grab them.
Yes. And you know the quote, good artist copy, great artist steal. That's always been part of the creative process. It's like the collective brain of humanity all through the internet has been generating things. And now we have this tool that can do it itself, but yeah, it can be kind of otherworldly and very kind of a big change, but the fundamentals to me feel the same. Like the same way I've been writing essays when I was in school, and I'd be like, all right, I'll look for these articles, copy paste it. I'd be rewriting stuff, moving stuff around.
Right.
I don't see such a major difference as long as you understand what you're doing and what that topic is and what you're trying to explain.
Right. Yeah, no, you're. I think you're absolutely right. I agree with that. Because you can do so much more now. Now that I know Midjourney and I know how it works, and I've been saving tons of prompts over. When I get complicated things, I do prompts. They're very complicated, so I save them. And then on top of that prompt, you're adding more and more. So I'll save different versions of that, and that becomes your same foundation as when artists have huge reference files. And you're right. The last 10 years, concept artists, and nobody's cared about it, they do what is called photo bashing, right? Or not just, you put a bunch of photos together and you create it and then go, here's a concept art for this. I mean, yes, they have the talent and the drawing and everything like that over it, but they've used this for speed. And so I say, what is the difference between photo bashing and using AI? AI is actually photo bashing. You are actually taking something that is there. With AI, they say, well, AI is the one in which you've actually pushed it in that direction.
Yeah.
You've done more than just photo bash. You've used your head and you've used your creativity. And so I just wish that people would if stop thinking that way. It's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt you in your career. Really got to learn AI. You got to put that behind. What I try and say is like, no, oh, it's stealing from other artists. That's what I'm hearing. That's why I say photo bashing is doing the same thing. But also, yes, in the beginning of I would do some stuff and I would say, oh, I can see a Jack Davis in there, or I can see I could see stuff in there. And nowadays, no. I don't see those references anymore. I mean, there were, there's so many now on the internet or whatever it is and there's so many photos that I can look at that it's not taking artist's work. I mean, yeah, bits and pieces. It's no different than what other people have done, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And I know that people are going to get pissed off at me.
It's a tough topic, man.
Yeah,
I went to GDC. No one wants to talk about it, but I've spoken to some really cool, talented artists, and what they were telling me is like it kind of maps to the Pareto principle, which is 80% of the work you do doesn't really count. It's that 20% that really makes something matter.
Right.
And that 80% can now be outsourced to AI. You can focus on the things you really want to do. If we're drawing this entire room that we're in, I don't want to have to draw every menial detail that I have to get perfectly right. If I can generate a pretty good 80% version of it, then I can fix it the way I'm looking for. And then I can focus on the character design or the very thing I want to put in all my hours. Instead, like, artists are constantly having to draw everything. And they're going into crunch. They're burning out. It's tough, man, to do everything. And like, why can't we just see this as a tool that enhances people and allows them to focus more on the work they want to do?
Yeah. You're right. That's what people are missing. They're missing that I can do my job in 10 minutes now, and everybody's going to take my job. I'm going to be fired and all. And I'm like, not if you're true to what you do, you'll learn this. I mean, the fact is that I love making art. That's my whole life has been creative, right? So, I'm going to look at these things and say, how can it make me better? Right? Or maybe not better, but at least broader. And this is a nice broad thing that's going to grow for years. And if you know it, you're going to flow with it, just like you do Maya they didn't teach that in school when I went. And, 3D Studio and all these, Illustrator and stuff, they all are there to make your artwork better and make it faster. Because everything I used to do, I still do it, of course, 2D, is everything had to be painted. Everything had to be drawn.
How manual things used to be, man.
Now you can still have the same creativity. You'll get it just done faster. Or what I like is I'm creating a scene in my head and I want to concepted out, right? Well, but I don't know whether I want it night, day, mountain, snow, whatever. So I'll do a couple and go, I don't like the snow, and throw it out. And then the next day I can go into my art director or artist and say, here, this needs to be fixed up and everything, but I want it at night now. And I do want a little bit of snow. And so I can actually make my direction better. And then show them something that's close to it, right? And then they're still going to have to create something, whether it's by hand or AI.
You can make a better decision because rather than having to draw everything out yourself of snow, whatever, all those different varieties, you can quickly generate them, observe them, make the creative choice. And that is, again, the 80-20. You're not having to do all that groundwork to get to the decision you're trying to get to, man.
Even a bigger one is textures. Right? They buy them. We buy them. We all the time. We're buying them from, Getty or whoever. It's not like somebody went out to every single thing in the world and they photographed it perfectly with no light source or anything so that we could take it and light it the way we want. So, you're getting, over the years, they've been using a lot of that stuff, and you have to, but a lot of that's been used and touched up and taken over. Well, now, if I wanted to, I could create, and I have, let's just use I would like a stop sign from Hungary. Okay. AI will create that for me. Instead of me having to look for it and find everything. It's the same creative process, but I didn't really feel like drawing and working on a stop sign. I want to take some of these for granted so I can work on other stuff.
I mean, I love that you're saying this because I went to a GDC talk, game developer conference in San Francisco just recently before coming here.
Okay.
And there was a guy talking about telemetry and tools.
Okay.
And he said that the difference between someone going straight into a search bar and just typing something and getting kind of that image, let's say that stop sign, compared to someone having to open up their browser, go on Google, type in the image, find the image, copy it.
Yep.
That even though you may say, oh, that's a 5 or 6 second difference, over the long run, we're talking hundreds, thousands of hours of just time wasted trying to access this tool or trying to get around to this. Like the difference between just having a menu button or having it in a drop down, even if it's 3 or 4 seconds, that adds up immensely in a development team. And I think what you're kind of saying there is absolutely true. Like being able to just get what you're looking for right away. And what's wrong if that's AI, if it's pulling the image that you would have otherwise gotten anyway, but you'd have to search.
Yeah, like textures. You would have to, let's just say I can get any brick that I want. I'll go take a photograph of it and I'll go get it and bring it in, just like you said. Then I have to tweak it. I got to make sure it's tileable. And, then I put it in my own files and I make sure that it's, but categorize. But imagine if you could just go, I mean, nobody wants to sit there and just make textures. Yeah, we do have some people who are great and you have them go over textures later, and they create their own textures and they hand them off to each other. But imagine you could just like, man, I wish I had all the brick that was in this, and you can't. Imagine you can go to a place, a marketplace, or anywhere, and now I buy my, I always did anyway, I bought these things for the artists and stuff, so now they can just make them, or they can just buy that prompt. And so if you save hundreds on that, maybe thousands, I got a texture and I got to do 5 different textures. It doesn't happen in one day. It happens probably in a couple of days, right? AI, you just get it done and you tweak the hell out of it till it's probably better than what you had in your mind, and you use that. No copyright issues, no nothing.
Yeah, man, it's important. Like I think we need to be really open and we need to be talking about what it means to integrate that process. The same way when we met, we started talking about AI and you were really open. Like, this is how I'm using it. Like, I just want to have a conversation about it because it's going to change things whether we like it or not. And because of its efficiency, because of its ability to be able to speed you up and get to the work that you really want to do. And
well, and it's come to a point where with me and Midjourney is that I am creating art pieces, I think. And in many cases, when I'm just doing my own stuff or whatever, even when I'm doing any characters or anything, I would like to be one of the first people. I would like to do an art show with just my stuff that I've done in Midjourney, or I've done stuff in others too. And I would like to showcase that. I could show hundreds of pieces, but even if I just had 100 or something like that, I can see having a different type of art show too. I have some pieces that we printed out. They're beautiful. Like, some of them are just unbelievable, right? And then I can see some, because there is, when you're drawing, you have all these drawings and sketches, but they're all working in a line parallel. I mean, down to your final drawing. It's the same thing with Midjourney, but with a drawing, you lose it all because then I draw over it and I finish it. With Midjourney, I have got hundreds and hundreds of how I got to that character. So I would foresee like screens like that, big television screens as well, and you've got a piece on it, and then you could click it and go see how you made it, and you'd be educating at the same time, showing people that this is art. It is art. It's a real art. Just stop the controversy.
Yeah,
it's going to happen. It's happening. You can't get out of the way of progress. You may be able to slow it down, but progress, you're going to die someday. Progress isn't. Progress always goes further. So you got to deal with it.
Absolutely. For me, just to kind of wrap it up in my head, I think AAA, the quality of the game is going to go even higher. I mean, it's gonna shoot through the roof. Yep. But I think the most important thing is that across the game development landscape, a lot of smaller studios, indie studios, solo developers, they're going to have all these incredible tools to be able to build some crazy good shit. Like,
if they can afford it. If I'm telling everybody says, right? Everybody says I'm going to get the tools, but now it's up to these guys that are building tools have put, what, $2 trillion? I'm hearing crazy numbers in AI.
Mm.
So you think they're going to do it for free? No way. I mean, we're going to have to pay for subscriptions. We're going to have to pay for this. It's going to be broken. It's not going to fit. So the first few years are going to be really rough. That's what I believe. So you take the pieces that you know, and then you write a few so they're proprietary for yourself and your team and your company. And yeah, I think you let one of these AAA companies, AAA teams, and you say you're fully AI driven. Not, you know what I mean, fully. You do it, and that creativity and everything. I would look forward to that because I know the next game I make is going to feel so different than the ones I make now. And it's going to look different. It's going to be better. And I'm probably going to get to some mechanics that, I was thinking of one. I have this one where you go back in time, but I was like, everybody, go through vortex or whatever. And I'm still thinking about you go in a room and everything starts to spin and you're standing there and it's the bricks start to spin and then they turn into dust and they start spinning, and they slow down and they rebuild the same place you're in, but differently. So, I mean, not that I would put that in a game, but I mean, that's the idea where I'm going, I can now think even bigger than I thought when I'm using the Unreal Engine or Call of Duty. I really did think what Call of Duty can produce anything that I come up with. And that's how good the engine was. I think the AI is going to come up with that and then go, here's a little cherry on top. They're going to give you a little more, right? Because that's what happens.
Yeah.
And sometimes, look, I may spend the day, arguing with my AI, really. And at the end of the day, I'm like, geez, I didn't get anything out of it today, right? Because you're not giving it the right prompts. You're not doing that. So when you finally get it, that's when I save the prompts. And I think that you don't want a team working at home. Everybody's coming up with their own prompts that are the same, right? So you can use them through the team or whatever. So, yeah, it can save a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of energy. But when you save the time, you're not telling guys, well, you got it done in 4 hours, go home. Because nobody wants that, right? If you're passionate, you want to work, you want to get whatever
There's
can be
more
done.
things you can do, though. I just think, like, even if
so we're still going to fill up the time.
Yeah, exactly. Like even like QA, for instance. Like everyone's scared, QA is going to get if I've seen what Claude Code or Codex can do, it can debug its own software.
Yes, right.
I think then that means that QA isn't necessarily looking for bugs, but they could be playtesting the game in different ways. Like we can expand the way we explore and understand the game and test it with the audience. It just means that we can flesh out the things that still need to be inherently human in ways that we don't yet understand. We need people to lead the way to be like, all right, if bugs no longer exist, which if you ask me, if I have to live in a world where bugs don't exist.
No, that's what I was.
That's what you want, right?
I was saying earlier is that, and I should have said, because one of the AI dreams that I have is no bugs. Give me no bugs. And so that's not going to take less people. That's going to take probably more people in QA running different types of, like, one thing isn't going to debug, I don't think, not now, your collision, your enemies, your people, I got a bug that's in the skeleton of my elbow.
Yeah.
But it will allow our guys to go deeper and deeper on bugs, find stuff that maybe isn't a bug, but it was flagged, and fix that, and still have more time to do other things within the game. And so, no, I think the UI, the team that makes, QA, that's probably going to grow. That's probably going to double. Because I'm shooting for no bugs.
Yeah, you can the most perfect game.
Level probably at 3 to 5 Metacritic points, writing itself, no bugs.
There you go.
And that's what when you're a director, you're looking for what I mean, I'm not all about the. I'll listen to analytics and see all that stuff, but sometimes I think that just takes away the creativity. But we'll look at stuff and we'll make changes based on that. But a lot of stuff is in your head, and the only way you can get out is with a tool like or a medium, which that's become. And I think that if artists think of it as a medium, because when I thought of it as a medium, and it's been a while ago, I was like, oh, wait a second, this is cool. right? Because everybody tries new stuff with new mediums, right? If I have epoxy and I'm doing big paint and painting for somebody, I do this stuff, and then epoxy kind of takes over. Right, you're doing watercolor, and that you know what you're doing, but you're looking for the happy mistakes or those things like that, and that's what AI can give you by the truckload. Right, you're like, I never thought of that, and now you know how to take AI in different directions.
Yeah, I think
It's done a lot. It's opened up my artistic world even more.
And it's amazing because I can imagine so many people would think maybe someone like you, they wouldn't want to embrace AI. They've seen the whole industry, how it's kind of grown. Like there's probably nostalgia.
There is,
but you're embracing it. I think that's
yeah, because I see good. I see you can make me better. You can make me a better artist. Well, that's what I want. You can make me a better director. Right? That's what I live for.
Yeah.
Right. And I think most of us do. Right. We want to get better. We want to learn. We want to do things. This is your time. Oh man. If you're at that age where, you're on the cusp of becoming a manager or something like that, what a great time. Learn this and you become a manager.
Yeah.
Right. Because people are like, I don't know AI, especially if your boss doesn't know. So it's a great thing. I really look forward to it. And not sure I'll make another game again, but we'll see. But if I do, man, am I going to use it?
With everything that you've been through, what still excites you about games like coming up in the future?
Well, AI, because there's no doubt that I don't know what it can do.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
So you don't know what kind of game you can build. Like you're thinking.
No, I have that in mind. Right?
Okay.
I know what I can. I know what I can build today, but I know that in a month, or 6 months, there'll be something else that I'm going to be able to. Oh, now I can do this with animation, right? So there's an excitement that's happening in the next few years to me, right? And another reason why you should have AAA teams, big AAA teams. I know not it could be 100 people, whatever, because you want them being the first for your company. That being, try different stuff, right? Because the big teams usually are the first ones on the next platform.
Yeah, they're pushing the frontier of what
everything,
the genre
right?
can be or the game.
We're telling them how to even be put on Xbox because, that doesn't come with directions. You got to figure this out, and you got to make tools. You got to help your studios and stuff like that. So the big teams would do that, and so you don't need as big as you want. I mean, that's the right thing to say, right nowadays. Yes, I can make a game cheaper, and I can still make it better because of AI. But I don't think cheap is going to come out of this.
Yeah, we're missing the point. It's the creative.
I think that people are going to go, wow, it still costs $150 million to make this freaking game. Yeah, because AI is so freaking expensive.
Yeah.
And then somebody's going to come up with an engine, but it took 20 years to get the Unreal Engine.
At a risk of not having you repeat yourself, what advice do you have for anyone who's listening right now?
Well, besides, learn AI. For artists, no matter what your field is practice. That's what I do. When I paint, I call practice.
Yeah.
And so I practice all the time. And if you're new in the industry and you're going to start competing against people like me, and so learn now. I love it when people are better than me, right? Because we're going to make a great game. My advice, is practice, learn, and don't turn your back on new things, right? Embrace what you can. Find out more about it. And for those people that are talking about AAA games are dead, I remember in the 1860s, a guy came out and said, and I don't know, famously came out and said, it was, during the Industrial Revolution, and said, there will never, ever be a patent made again. We've made everything. Right? It's crazy. You'll look it up. You'll see. And, a lot of people are like, yeah, nothing else. And I'm like, well, look what happened. Right? And we don't know what's going to come out of this, right? But it's going to be some good stuff, some really good stuff. So I don't know. Do that, practice, play games, and hang in there.
Glenn.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on, man.
Oh man, I know I talked a lot.
So, no. You were incredible.
Thank you so much, man. You ask great questions, dude. Yeah, I love getting into the deep end of making it.
Hey, man, maybe we do this again.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. That's it, guys.
Was that all right?
Yeah.